So the Olympics are about winning. The athletes compete to win, and their goal is to take the gold. But it's much more than just a medal, hopefully, anyway. Hopefully that ribbon around their neck speaks not just to athleticism, but to character. My next guest is calling out the values of a real winner and sharing how, beyond those accolades, we can better celebrate the personal victories we experience in everyday life. Boyd Matheson, host of KSL Radio's Inside Sources, joins me, a busy guy, this week, today, and always. Thank you for making time.
Always.
I love, and this is what the Olympics, I think, does for so many people and families, when you can take an aspect of these big worldwide games and find a life lesson the rest of us can learn from. A real winner, that's something to think about.
It is, and there's so many of those that are going to play out over the next several weeks. You'll have the comeback story. You'll have the old athlete with one last shot at glory. You'll have all of those things that will play out. But they're all stories, and they're usually family and community connected. And we often talk about the Olympics as a big worldwide thing. It's all community.
I love that. I love that. This is the first Olympic Games where I have kids old enough to be chatting. And it's already been so fun to talk about all the themes you just mentioned. So we asked you to boil down some key characteristics of a real winner. And your first word you reached for was resilience. Yeah,
resilience. Every single one of these athletes has had the ups and downs. I always go to the George Patton quote of, it's not how high you soar, but it's how high you bounce when you hit bottom. That's the real test. And that's really the gold medal moment, is those who have come back from big injuries, devastating loss, family challenges, even some of these athletes who don't even have countries anymore. I mean, we think about some of the loss and how resilient they are, not just to survive those, but then to come back and perform at an Olympic level. It's really extraordinary.
This next one sort of surprised me. It speaks to this buzzword mindfulness. You say winners are powerfully present.
Powerfully present. It is all about being here now.
Right now.
Yeah, because it's so easy to look at what just went wrong, or to project the stress of what you need to do next. But extraordinary athletes have that ability to just be present. They're not worried about a mistake they just made. They're not worried about a bad call by the referee. They're not worried about the stress of, I got to make this next shot or get this next serve in. They're powerfully present. And that's one of the things interesting. Michael Jordan, everyone talks about all of his athletic gifts and his mental gifts, but his real gift is the fact that he could be powerfully present. He would always say, the game doesn't care. Game doesn't care what just happened. Game doesn't care about what's next. Can you be powerfully present in the moment? And that's where all of those Olympic moments actually happen, is you got to be present.
And you touched on this next one, which I love, to bench excuses. I always say I can mark a good intern as soon as they say the phrase, I messed up. Just period. I messed up. There is such, confidence in that, right? And admiration in terms of their leadership skills.
It's the only path forward, is to acknowledge what's happened and then go forward. We always say, if you're complaining about the rules or the referees, it's because you're losing. And you can make excuses or you can make progress, but you can't make both. I use that with my kids all the time. It's like, you can make excuses all you want, but if you want to make progress, you can do that. But you can't do both of those things together.
Dad, we've heard that before. Dad. I love it. And finally, real winners know thyself.
Yeah, really. This used to be the motto at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado. It used to be chiseled in granite above the door, know thyself, because it's about understanding who you are, your strengths for sure, but it's also recognizing your weaknesses. And here's something really interesting to watch over the course of the Olympics and in our personal lives. People fail not because they don't have the right strengths or abilities. They fail because their weaknesses become the dominant force in their behavior. And we often get in trouble with that. A salesperson fails not because they don't know how to sell, but because they get disorganized or they don't have that discipline. A secretary will fail because they don't have the detail to deal with the little things. A CEO or an executive might fail because their ego gets too big and it becomes the dominant force in the behavior. And so it's often those little things that are our weaknesses.
I love that.
That we have to acknowledge, because even in a presidential election, they're rarely won, they're usually lost. And the people who lose, it's because their weaknesses become the driving force of their behavior.
So good, Boyd, and I love that applies, as you just demonstrated and articulated, to every station, every position, every title, motherhood and beyond. So with that in mind, as we've kind of identified and defined what a real winner is, how can we go about in our everyday life celebrating those characteristics that you've talked about? You've got some suggestions. One I'm so curious to hear your thoughts on. First, praise in the form of a question. This is the one that kind of stopped me in my tracks. Praise in the form of a question.
Yeah, it is the best way to give praise. Normally when we give praise, we make statements. We say, you're the best, you're number one, you're the All-American, you're the champ. So try this instead. Your daughter scores the goal to win the game.
Right.
Natural reaction, good job, way to go, you're the best. Instead, ask a question. What were you thinking as you saw that ball sailing into the top corner of the goal? How did you feel
Come on.
knowing you had just won that game for your team?
So much better.
Changes the focus from the
Yes.
act to the individual.
To the athlete.
And people will get more validation to their self-confidence and self-esteem by having a chance to share with you their thoughts about a performance than they'll ever get just listening to your statements of praise.
That is so good because
And adults are the same.
well, it dovetails right into what we hear all the time is don't praise the outcome, praise the effort.
Yeah, exactly.
Good.
Exactly.
Good.
And there's a lot of Olympic effort going on as well. And we should validate that in our children and in our peers.
Yeah.
If you see them doing something, doesn't matter if they didn't win the prize or be first or accomplish the big goal, acknowledge the effort and say, wow, that was Olympic effort you gave today. I saw you work that extra hour. I saw you really pay the price to pass that test. So acknowledge that Olympic effort is also really significant.
That's so good. Then we tell them a story.
Yeah, and tell them their story. So not just tell them a story. So as you watch your child go through, maybe it's working on a project for school or a big competition that they're in, tell them their story. As I watched you go after this goal, here's what I saw. I saw you have some resilience. I saw you deal with maybe some discouragement or some frustration. I saw you, interact and get with your teacher and overcome that particular problem. So tell the story, their story, their Olympic story, to them.
You're narrating what you saw and what you felt in them. That connects the dots and all the values we just celebrated. Boy, it's so good.